Thank you. Okay, so for those of you who don't know Mariana, she has an undergraduate degree in architecture from the University of Lisbon and a master's in urban design from Harvard Graduate School of Design. Mariana has worked in India, USA, and Portugal, focused on projects of urban rehabilitation and public space requalification. RES de CHAO, a project she co-created in Lisbon, developed strategies to rehabilitate and activate ground floor and public spaces, strengthening local economies and neighborhood relations. In continuation with these topics, her master thesis looked at markets on public space and their temporal dimension. So I've closely seen Mariana's work, and I've been seeing the work that Mariana has done previously, and I thought it was very relevant from the point of view of community engagement. So I hope that y'all are able to withdraw a lot of ideas, a lot of tools from what Mariana has done with her work, and also have some questions, or you can withdraw as much as you can from Mariana. Cool, Mariana. Thank you so much for agreeing to do this and taking out the time to be here with us.
And thank you for inviting. I do hope it's useful, and if anyone wants to ask questions during the presentation, you can interrupt me if there's some like urging question, or else we'll leave it for the end. Margarita will also, so I work with Margarita, and Margarita will also join us in the end for the questions, since she has been more involved with the project for the last years. So I'll start the presentation. I'll share the screen.
Yes, please.
You see the PDF, right? The presentation?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry. Okay, so just 1 minute. Is it, you can hear another voice? Is it disturbing or it's fine?
No, that is fine. Did you go full screen by any chance?
No, but I will then. Like this.
Hi, yes, it's there. Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Okay, great. Let me just get to that. Okay. So I'll present a project that me and 3 other colleagues started in 2013. I've been working on and off in this project, but I'm again working. Margarita has been the one that has been taking the project further, and she'll join us later. And RES de CHAO means, it's the name of the project, and it means near the floor in Portuguese. And it's the word that we use for ground floor spaces, being retail, residential, offices, is what we call a ground floor space. It has the meaning also of something that is near the floor, literally. So I think it's really relevant for what we are doing. So the project started after the 2008 crisis, where many ground floor spaces started getting closed because of the economic crisis. And this started impacting the streets and the life on public space. And in 2013, we participated on a social entrepreneurship competition here in Portugal to propose strategies for rehabilitating and occupating these ground floor spaces. And as we are understanding the ground floor spaces as a continuation of the public realm, we were thinking that this could, to rehabilitate the spaces and to reoccupy them, it could contribute for the city's image, for the identity of the city, and for the construction of strong local economics and neighborhood social relations. So we saw this, the vacant ground floors as a problem for the street and for the quality of the life on public realm. So we were thinking on strategies to reoccupy this and to bring more life to the city. So we have now been developing this project since the last years in 3 lines of actions, these ones that are here. So the rehabilitation and requalification of public spaces or ground floor spaces, activation and awareness. And each different strategy or intervention that we have been producing since then is developed and integrated in one of these topics. The methodology of the projects has been more or less the same. We start with an analysis, and because all the interventions are customized to a specific context, to a specific territory, so we always start with an analysis of that territory. And then we develop a group of strategies or interventions, always with involvement of the community or participation of different stakeholders. And then in the end, there is an impact assessment of that project so that it can be integrated on the next projects. So we have done some different projects, not just in Lisbon, but also in other places in Portugal. But the main territories where we have been working are Misericordia, that is here in the center of the city. This is Lisbon. And Marvila, that is a social housing project outside of the historical core. And the projects have been, have been developed or participated until now, depending on that place where we have been spending that time. So before we had kind of the headquarters of the project in Misericordia, and now we are here in Marvila, where I am now. So I will start with the projects that we developed in this specific territory in Misericordia, and I'll give a bit of the context of it. So this neighborhood is in the city center, so in the core of the city of Lisbon. And until 2008 was an active commercial area. It's a consolidated area of the city, and it had a very diverse population. But after the crisis, things changed a bit. Many of the shops were closed. Many of them were like construction materials, and because the construction really went down at the time of the crisis, these shops all just closed. So there were around 50% of the shops that closed at that time, and we could really see that the quality of the streets became worse than before. So we developed different projects, as I said before, and always on this kind of line of access of action of rehabilitation, requalification, activation, and awareness. And I will talk about some today. I will talk about the analysis, a shop that we opened, a street market, and then a parklet. I thought that maybe this would be the ones that are more useful for your studio, but you can see also on the website later. And if you have some questions, you can always contact me. So this is the analysis of the territory, and to start, we surveyed the commercial ground floor spaces that were vacant. So all these red dots were the spaces that were not being used at that time. And with each one of those, we tried to identify their owners. So kind of really looked and asked many people to try to understand who were the owners of the spaces and why were they vacant. Oh, by the way, each project that I'm showing, I'm putting here on the side, I don't know, you can see all of the PDF, right? Without your, okay. So here on the side, that is who sponsored the project and who are the stakeholders. Because of course, without those projects would not have happened. So I just wrote it there because many of these institutions you will anyways not know. So as I said, we identified all these places and we tried to understand why were they vacant. And there was, of course, many different reasons. Some of them, they were bought by banks and they were just like waiting for the crisis to get over to be able to be sold for a higher price. Sometimes were disputes in like someone that died and they didn't know who would inherited the space, so there was a lot of problems, but also the rents that were asked were really high for that time. So it was difficult for someone to be able to pay a full rent of the spaces for a long term. So we decided that it was important to test new occupation and activation strategies that could invert the situation. So we rented a space, this one, an old grocery shop that was closed for more than 10 years. So we did a very kind of hands-on, low-cost rehabilitation, trying to maintain the memory of the place, and we adapted to new uses to try this new strategy for renting that I'll show after. Many of the materials were donated by private companies that you see here on the site, and we were actually working on the site. It was really interesting to try to keep the memory of the place, because then the place was a grocery shop. It was closed for 10 years. So later there were many people that would just come inside of the shop, see around and ask, why did we do what we did, why we were there? If we knew the story of the place, it would just tell us a lot of like memories attached to the shop. So we thought that this was really important and kind of successful, because we really understood that these places are part of the memory and the culture of a neighborhood. So this is the plan and the section of the space. It had this kind of mezzanine that we kept, and this was closed and we opened it up. So then from above, you will have a relation with the front of the shop. So what we decided to test was a kind of a model of a shared shop and a co-working. So at the time where we made the mapping of all the vacant spaces, we also sent questionnaires to different people, put it online on our website about why weren't people renting the space, and what would they like to see in the spaces. And we got a lot of messages from people that were starting their business, like young people that were starting their own businesses and could not afford a full rent of a space like this for a long term. But they did see the value on working near to the street to understand if their products were sellable, to get feedback from the people that were buying, etc. So we tested this kind of co-shop and co-working space. The residents, as I was saying, were mainly owners of small companies of design products. They could not afford the rent for the whole space, and this offered the solution to work and to sell their products at an affordable price. It was really interesting because then it creates a kind of a dynamic between the people that were on the space, and after a point, each one was responsible to take care of the shop once a week so that everyone else could be working, and there was someone that was in the front of the shop selling everyone's products. We also tested how could this space be an extension of the public realm. Like I said in the beginning, we are understanding retail and ground floor spaces, not the residential, of course, but offices and retail as kind of an extension of the street, of the public realm. So we started thinking on how to renting out the spaces for events or opening up the space for events that were already happening in the neighborhood. So I'll show some photographs of what happened during the time that we had the space. This is a series of concerts and exhibitions that happened for a weekend on a Saturday and a Sunday. This is one of the concerts. This is a presentation by one of the residents of the space about her own project. So then people that were kind of renting a table, they could also do an event if necessary. So this is a kind of a launch of one of her projects, of Sarah. And this is a workshop of a nonprofit that was one of the stakeholders on the neighborhood that worked with grandmothers. And here there's a workshop where the grandmothers are teaching like a sewing technique to younger people. So another project that we did in this territory, in this neighborhood, was a neighbors market. So after opening the shared shop that I was showing, there were many other shops that start opening with young people. And after that point that we saw that the neighborhood was starting to change, we decided to organize this monthly street market. And this was mainly kind of a response to the gentrification that was happening on the neighborhood, since there were some shops that were there since some time, but there were also a lot of young people that were maybe a bit disconnected from the memory of this neighborhood. So we thought it was important to have a connection between the older business owners and the new ones. So the market helped promoting the old shops as well as the new ones. It introduced and connect the residents and shop and business owners and establish new possible collaborations. For example, we know that some of the designers that started coming to this area found out here about service shops like workshops or binders that happened here in the that happened in this neighborhood. So they found out about this other services on this market. So that was also one of the objectives. And the market was also a way to promote the use of public space. Of course, this was on like a small corner of a street that was not very well maintained, and it was not used. So because of the market, every month we would clean the space and occupy the space, so that would promote its use somehow. And it was not a very profitable market. There was sometimes there was not so, people would not sell so much, but it was really always eventful, and people really enjoyed to spend their morning or their afternoon here. There was always music and dancing, etc. And another project was the parklet. So to improve the area of a sidewalk, I'm sure that all of you know what's a parklet, but to improve the area of sidewalk and pedestrian public space, we started thinking about the possibility of implementing parklets on areas that have narrow sidewalks. I mean, you can see here how narrow is the sidewalk. It's the same thing on this side. So, and this is the shop where we were working from. So we really could witness that there was not enough space, and people would just circulate and will not use the space to just stay and talk. Or if someone would just decide to stay and talk here, it would be almost impossible to pass. So we did this pilot parklet with pallets from a construction site nearby that we just like stopped and asked if we could use them. We started for some days in a neighbor shop, and then we did a crowdfunding to pay for someone to help us assemble it. And we asked permission to the municipality to occupy this parking space for 2 weeks. I'll just show a video that we did for the crowdfunding. I thought it would be fun, maybe a bit embarrassing, but I'll just show the, I'm going to show it anyways. You can also, again, later if you want, I can send the links for this. Okay, you can see a like black screen, right? Yeah, okay. I don't know if you will listen the sound, but anyways, will you?
You want to pause? No, we can't hear. So if you click on the view options, there's this option that you should get share computer sound.
On the view options.
Yeah.
Where is view options? Sorry.
That little tab that you should.
Yeah. So there is a view options there?
Yeah.
Shared computer sound, yeah.
Yeah.
Can you hear now?
Yeah.
Okay. This was the what we put online for a crowdfunding website. And this was like one take. We thought, how can we show that this space could be used not by a car, but for something else, a bit more social. So yeah, so with this, we end up getting, I think it was 1,000 or 2,000 euros to pay someone to help us to assemble this and to pay for the parking space, since we were using basically a parking space. So I'll continue. Okay, so yeah, this was kind of a pilot project, but we were thinking this as something that we were hoping that people would understand, that mainly the municipality would understand the value of building parklets to provide for more public space. We also, I mean, we understood many things because we were right there in the front. We could observe people not being sure if they can sit there or not, because it's like a new thing, and they were thinking that maybe this belongs to some restaurant or something. So then we started like every afternoon to just go and sit there to show that people could just come and use. Then people, some people from the cafe nearby would come here every time that they need to smoke, they would come and sit here. So then, because there was one more person, then more people would come. So it was really interesting to see how like a new equipment on this area, on this street was used. And then later we started building kind of a report on how these parklets could be a way to provide for more public space to the city on mainly on streets that have really narrow sidewalks. That happens in the core of Lisbon. And how they could be, for example, related with the pedestrian crossing to provide more safety for the pedestrians to cross, since there will be more visibles, because normally there would be a car parked here. So we did a kind of report on the advantages of building parklets in this area of the city for the municipality. I think this was the only, we are not very sure, but there was a news that came that this was the only parklet that was allowed by the municipality. And they have been thinking about this now, because on COVID, there are a lot of questions on how the spaces outside can be extensions of shops and restaurants, etc. And how can we use more public space instead of exterior public space. So this has been, again, something that has been talked about in Lisbon. So kind of closing down this territory, we know that with the contacts that we made in the beginning of the project, with finding out who were the owners of those shops, that there were at least 10 new spaces that opened on those like we kind of put in contact people that were looking for spaces, and many times are nonprofits or like cultural or design entrepreneurs that were starting their projects, and we put them in contact with the owners, and there were at least 10 spaces that were open like this. The vacancy decreased from 40% to 20%. Of course, this is not just because of us, but because of different stakeholders on this location, but also because with the crisis slowing down and the economic getting a bit better, there were more shops that opened. But this is like how in the years that we were there, that was from 2014 to 2018, how things changed in this neighborhood. And with the events that we organized, like the market, we know that at least 5 partnerships between neighbors. And this was something that was important for us from the beginning, to think about how could stronger relations between neighbors be established, since we think that this is a good neighbor. A good neighborhood is also made of good neighbors. So this is something that we saw as an impact assessment. So now I'll talk about this other neighborhood where we are now, that is called Marvila. And we came here in 2017, and we are here since then. Again, mainly Margarida. I've been in the US and in India meanwhile, so I've been less here. So in this area is completely the opposite. There is a lot of space, there is a lot of open space, but it's not qualified. And it's a social housing project from the municipality, even if it's managed by another municipal agency. And here lives a population that was resettled from slums, from different areas of the city, as well as from this place. This place was an informal settlement. And these resettlements have been happening since 50 years ago until 20 years ago. So it happened for a long period of time. And as you see here, the houses are really small. So people tend to try to use public space, but the public space is so less qualified that For example, there's not even a space for you to see TV properly outside. That is like, the space is really not possible almost to utilize well. So here we develop again different strategies on the rehabilitation, activation and awareness. And I will speak about this today, about the analysis of the location of the neighborhood. And then something we did on public space, on this kind of pocket parks, a shop and a pop-up shop. So as analysis, this is the neighborhood. So we are here at the moment in one of these shops. This is a library. That is a really important equipment here because there are not many, and these are all social housing. Actually, they are all social housing, but this is kind of one neighborhood. Looking at the census, and this is the neighborhood that we are looking at, and this is Lisbon, so the statistics for both. We can see that here there's only 1% of the population that has higher education, that has higher education, sorry, everything is in Portuguese, compared to 27% in Lisbon. There is much less people employed. So this is the percentage of people employed at that time. And here it's this neighborhood. We also made again a survey of the spaces that were vacant. So again, all these places are vacant. There are some of them that are occupied, but mainly with services, not retail. And we also did a study on the street furniture and the amenities available on public space, since we thought that here the problem was not so much the quantity, but the quality of public space. This is the ones of the furniture and amenities. And then we also started understanding who were the stakeholders, and we started attending the existing community meetings. So this is one of them. And finally, for the analysis, we organized an event with the residents to draw up what were their wishes, things that they would like to see on their neighborhood. So we hired Sarah, that sometimes works with us. She's an artist, and she was people would come and tell her what would they like to see on their neighborhood, what is missing, and then she would draw what people were wishing for. And here it's what's here behind me now. We can see a gym, a dance center, many supermarkets. That's something that they don't have it here so much. So if you want to just go and buy fruits, you have to walk some time. A bakery. So these are some of the things that the residents thought that was missing or they would like to see on their neighborhood. So still bringing a bit of the knowledge from the project before, we still understand the ground floor spaces as important for the quality of the public realm. And with the support of the municipality, one of the ground floor spaces, that is this one that I'm now, was used for a kind of a pop-up shop for 10 days. And we did things that the community asked for, as presentations of projects that were happening on the neighborhood that they didn't know much about. So there was a presentation of those projects. There was some things to do with knitting workshop and stitching workshop. We were not on this shop for a while, but the municipality allowed us again to stay here. And I think it's really interesting because the people that we worked with and we see at the community meetings know that we are here. So whenever there's something that they want to talk about, they can come here. I think it's really important to have a place on the neighborhood where we are working on. So another project now, still on this neighborhood, is this time related with public space rehabilitation, and is the requalification of these pocket parks on this area. So we have worked on this one. We are doing a project for this one now, and these ones are still maybe on the pipeline. So we'll still work on them. It really depends on funding. So it's kind of, we are sure that this one will happen. The municipality says that it's possible that the other ones will happen, and we never know, but we are hoping for that. And so do the community here. So there was of course a phase where there were community meetings and there were work sessions to evaluate the needs and wishes of the community. And of course, knowing that it was a really low budget, this first one, now for the second one, there's a larger budget. And we showed kind of this as a proposal after knowing what people were thinking of and what they would like to see here on this pocket park. And then we tested some parts of the proposal, and later we implemented with the residents some of the mainly games. It was mainly for children of this area that like play football outside or used to play football outside. So we thought that we should target mainly them and how could they use this space. So we painted a lot of games on the floor. We also asked an artist from this area to paint a wall and some benches. It's this one. There's also a lot of yeah, I'll tell you later. So understanding that these new spaces and alterations, just like we saw on the parklet, sometimes done by external agents, take some time to get appropriated. So we also thought it was important to activate the place, and we organized a day of events, kind of to formally inaugurating the space. So this is the first inauguration. The kid is cutting the ribbon. And we organized street games, a class of Zumba, and a big concert. So this was kind of the inauguration of the place. So now the same will be, sorry, the same will be replicated in another one of those pocket parks. This time there's a bigger budget from the neighborhood council. And on the first meeting with the community, there was a selection of furniture for the space. So this were the things that were selected by the community, by the residents. Again, there's an interest on giving children spaces to play. And later there was a kind of a Tangram approach where we would give the space of how much each object would occupy and what was it. And there is only this space that is possible to build on. So we kind of made a game where people were thinking on how could this be placed, so that there's a choice, because in the beginning everyone wanted many things without the understanding that we won't be able to fit everything. So the next phase was to try to prioritize and to think what were the infrastructure that was more interesting for the residents. It's also interesting that some people suggested these games on the floor, that is this one, with an understanding that it's something that is easy to do from the previous design implementation, and also an understanding that the municipality told us that we could only use this space, but since it's just games on the floor, I'm sure that it's possible to implement in other places. So this is now in budget, and hopefully it will get built soon. So now thinking, and I'll finalize soon. So now thinking about the impact assessment on how were the results, and we are still developing projects here. So this is kind of in the middle of the project, but what we can see is that there is more participation. The participation is higher than before. So while in 2017, the community meeting maybe had like 5 people normally, this one in particular had 40 people. So we see a higher participation. And we think this is just a question of seeing results on participating, and therefore be more willing to spend their times on these community meetings. And another thing we think is important is that while before most of the projects were driven by nonprofits and involved residents, like our case, like we would suggest something and then see if the residents would be interested or not. We start seeing a shift from projects that are driven by the residents with the help of the organization. So they are driven by them, the initial ideas are theirs, and then they ask the nonprofits to help them with who to contact or with specific expertise to actually take forward their projects. This is an example of that. It's a bike lane that will be implemented that was suggested by a group of residents. And another one that we think it's quite like a big, it's a really important thing for the community, is that there is a participatory budget here in Lisbon, and they have proposed that all this area becomes a garden, a neighborhood garden. And it was actually chosen for the participatory budget, and it will be implemented. It's now being it's now in tender phase. And it's something that, again, the residents suggested, and they ask help from many stakeholders, including us, to prepare the proposal and to help to, basically to prepare the proposal with their feedback. And it's now going to be implemented. It's on tender phase. So then to end, I think I'll end with this image that is the community here of the residents of this area, with the mayor of the city that is showing the support for this last project that I showed. And it just felt like a big achievement for everyone, since normally this community is kind of outcasted from the city, not part of many of the plans of the city. So we thought that this was an important achievement from this project, from this residents. And that's it. Thank you. Maybe it was much faster than what we were thinking.
No, but I think it gives a really good overview of everything that one can pick up from the projects that you all do. And I once again want to really thank you for putting this together and for sharing with us, all of the work that you all are able to do, and trying to also find kind of like cracks in the system to find ways to make things happen, because this usually is not something that one accounts as, urban design, or like people don't. But yeah, I'm happy that we get to see this. So I think I'll open the platform for questions if people would like to ask any questions.
Yeah, that would be great. If there is questions.
Okay,
if you all can leave. Sorry, Akash, go on.
I was just saying, if no one is asking, I have a question. So for the first project that you showed about the shop, you were talking about the memory of place. So I would like to know a little bit more about that, as in what were the design decisions you took in order to preserve the memory of the place, and how did you sort of account for it in the design?
Yeah, sure. So I think mainly the fact that it was a really low cost project, it made that we really had to be think really close on the strategies on what do we take, what do we put. And there was an important thing that was, I don't have an image here, but let's see the first one. Yeah, so this was all covered with plywood. So you would have a complete division between what was the front part, that was the shop part, with more the service area on the back. And for a while we were still considering it keeping the same, thinking that maybe the working area could be on the back and the shopping area could be on the front, like it was before. But then we saw some images that before it was open and we could understand by the structure. So we decided to kind of take some, see what is there, see if it works. And then we found this really nice, I don't know how you call this, lettering, like saying the name of the old grocery shop. So we thought that that was extremely important to be visible, to kind of take the layers of some of the changes that were later, and this was really important. Like people would. Another thing is the shop was always open. Not the door was always open, so people would just come in and start looking around and tell us stories about how they come to the grocery shop. Or like we also kept most of the furniture that existed. This one was almost impossible to take out because it was a stone kind of display for the fruits, etc. But we also renovated, that gave a lot of work, these structures on the sides. So there is this, I'm sorry, I don't know most of this names in English, but there is like a metal profile where you can put the shelves. So you can just change the shelves to whatever position you want. So we had to like clean all the shelves, repaint it, make sure that all the holes on the frame were reopened because some of them were already not. So that was also something that we tried to maintain. Yeah, and I think that's it. Then above also that space, I don't know if I have here. Yeah, this was in really bad state, so we kind of redid the floor with this material, and we kept it usable, always with a connection with down, so that you could be up and actually be kind of controlling the shop to make sure everything is fine. Yeah, and I think then the question of memory, it also relates with activating the space to making sure that people can come inside, that it's not just with the formal shop, that even so people will just come, even if they didn't want to buy anything, but they would just come and see what is happening inside. But also with this idea of having more events on the shop, it made that people were kind of welcome to enter, because there were so many people that could just one more enter and come and see the place. So yeah, I think mainly that.
Yeah, I think it's really good to see. I mean, how this little shop. I mean, like how what you did with the shop is really interesting to see, and the activities that are taking place in the outside, and how you also did that little outside small scale intervention that also like plugged into this whole program. I think that is also quite interesting to see. So, yeah, thank you for sharing this.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I think we started understanding that that was the initial, like the project started with that. On after seeing so many shops closing, you really understand how like commerce, how retail is so important for the identity of this specific neighborhood, but it's everywhere, right? So we just thought it was really important to understand this as a continuation of the public realm, basically, that there's no, it's not independent, even if it's a private space. The quality of the street depends on the quality of the spaces. So if they are vacant, then the quality of the street is not as good as it can be. But if it's used, and if there is some kind of relation, if we can maintain the relation and make them welcome, of course it can do the opposite. No, it can exclude, of course, like the quality, the how you create the spaces and how you design the spaces can also exclude many people from the public space. So we were trying to make sure that this space didn't do that.
So, Mariana, there are two different set of questions in the chat box. I'll read it out. So Ayushi is asking, one of the important factor in your strategy is community communication. My question is, how much the community and what kind of community affect or enhance the design? So how much of the community engagement affects or enhances the design? For example, if this project was brought and implemented in India, how different would it be? So that's the first question, and then I'll read out the second one.
Okay. I should call Margarita for that because she has been the one working on this last project, but I'll just try her, else I'll call her. So I think on the first, on this one, on the first like neighborhood that we were working on, there was less participation. So there were many people that had moved out. So we were dealing with vacant spaces. So there was less participation, and that's something that we really tried to develop while we were here. So after we did the survey of the vacant spaces and we occupied the space, we decided that we would do the survey of the occupied spaces. So then we went to talk with everyone, with all the retail owners of that street, of that kind of triangle, the three streets. And that's how we got to know many of them. And there was not like organization of the retail owners that sometimes it exists here, but at that moment there was not. So the fact, when we started organizing the market, people would actually come together, and if everyone would help somehow, and that started creating that community. And after that we did some we made some community meetings with those people that were always coming to the street market, to try to see if they were like if they wanted to take ownership of the market, if they want to change things. But it actually didn't happen. The space this area is changing so fast that that it was really difficult to maintain that group. On the second one, on the last project, it was completely community based. So there was an idea of what we were proposing. So the buildings, the social housing was going to have some maintenance construction. So we told this agency that manages the spaces that it would be important to also maintain the public space, not just the buildings, but also the space in front of it. And we proposed this to the residents community. And here there's already a residents community. There was already a group that, even if it was not very, not everyone was participating so much, and it was like not very often the meetings, there was already a group of residents that constituted the residents association. And yeah, and basically we suggested that if the housing is getting rehabilitated, that the public space should also be. And from then on, it was with community meetings that this project was developed. And we have been doing the same thing for the next pocket park, and of course for all the other ones. I think the design would be different everywhere, because it's about what are the community needs, what are the community wishes, the community ambitions. So what are the community stakeholders, because in this kind of projects, we also take kind of the expertise of different stakeholders. So I think the project will be very different. The design will be very different. The logic of community engagement would be similar, with different tools of engagement, of course. But the process of having meetings, of asking people, of not asking, but like people having the opportunity to express what are their wishes for this neighborhood, for their public space, and then building with them, showing proposals, getting their feedback, thinking if there's something that we are missing. I think that's something that it would be something that can be systematized and think that could be applied to other projects. The design would be different. And then of course, Portugal and India have completely different ways of thinking about public space and of using public space. So even more thinking about public space, I think the designs will be very different. I don't know if that answers your question. Who asked?
Ayushi.
Yeah,
Ayushi.
like for example, in India, we won't, according to me, we won't find much of women sitting on those outdoor seatings, because they mostly like to be in private. So I wanted to understand, how do we bring like not similar, but different genders in that kind of engagement?
Yeah, I think you need to build tools that will bring those people. So, I mean, if you make a community meeting here, men and women will come. Maybe if you make a community meeting in some places of India, maybe not so many women will come. So then I think the question is, why aren't women coming? Do we need to provide for someone to take care of their children so that they can come? Or do we need to make meetings just with women to make sure that we hear what are their concerns? So then I think the strategies have to be a bit different. Here, maybe there are some groups, because it's a very like racially diverse neighborhoods, maybe there are some groups that would not join the meeting so easily. So then we have to go and invite them and make sure that they feel that they are welcome to the meeting. So maybe if you're asking me that, like on top of my head, I think maybe the strategy is to ask why aren't certain groups coming, and making sure that the tools of engagement or participation are addressed to those.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Arshi, would you like to ask your second question as well?
Yeah, so I wanted to ask, like, after the design is made, how is the maintenance taken care of?
So partially is done by the. I'll just 1 minute. I just want to confirm with Margarida. Just 1 minute. Margarida. Sorry, but I do think it's by the municipal agency that takes care of the spaces. Sorry, she's coming here. They are asking. So this is Margarita. She's been working more on the project. She's with the co-host. They're asking who maintains the space after the design is implemented. Depois da obra estar feita, quem é que mantém o... Por exemplo, no novo, na praceta nova, quem é que vai manter aquilo? Sorry. Yeah, it's the kind of the council of this neighborhood and the residents association. So they both will maintain the space.
All right.
Yeah, you cannot hear me.
Hi.
Yeah, Margarida, so we studied together in Lisbon. So Margarida also did her bachelor's here in Lisbon. And then she has been, she worked in Ecuador, in Brazil, did Erasmus in Buenos Aires, exchange program in Buenos Aires. And then she was working still here in Lisbon for some months. And then we started the project and she has been managing it and leading it until now.
So, Anushka, would you like to ask the next question?
Yeah, sure. My question is how cooperative the municipality was throughout the process, and how did you communicate your design with them?
Como é que a câmera ajudou? O Pro. Acho que responde. In this one, I think. You're saying throughout, like on both projects, or you want to know one project specifically?
Generally, like both your projects, since both of them had municipality involved, so how were they with the whole process?
Yeah, maybe something. So we have dealt with the municipality, but also with the kind of the wards. So the neighborhood also has a council, and they will determine and accept they will accept the changes on public space also. It's kind of divided. The sidewalk is jurisdiction of the ward, and the road, the place where the cars run are the municipality. So we always have to deal with both. We have different experiences. On the first project, the ward was like helpful with some projects, and with other projects was not helpful at all. So how do we deal with that? Sometimes we invest more in one project than in other because we know already that some things will be easier than others. Like we understand the wards, and we try to advance with projects that we think are possible. And meanwhile, we try to still talk to them about the others.
Yeah, it's not an easy answer. It's not a closed answer because sometimes they are paying the project. So it's supposed that they want that the project go well, but they are not helping sometimes. And some of the activities that they paid for, we had to change some of them because of them.
Yeah, it happened, for example, so after we did that parklet, we got funding from the municipality to build another one after we did that kind of report. And then the ward didn't allow it. So basically we had the money funding from the municipality, but then the ward didn't allow for the parklet to get built. So, I mean, those things happen. And what we learned with that is that every time that if we are asking for funding, then we have to make sure that we have a written document by everyone that needs to be in agreement of that, so that we are sure that like we had funding, so then we had to do something else with that funding. But we learned with that we have to have every stakeholders in an agreement with a written document, so that we are a bit more sure that the project goes ahead. You never know, like things change every 4 years. The head of the council changes, so then it may change their politics for and their vision for their neighborhoods and for the city whenever it's the municipality. So yeah, so it happened already that we didn't do certain things because
and when there's something that we really want to happen, we just try for different ways.
yeah.
With different people.
Yeah, and on this one, I think it's a bit of an area that is more disinvested, because the other one is in the core of the city. It's where most of the tourists go, and this area is a bit more disadvantaged. So sometimes we go through, like maybe we reach the municipality through Jaivalis, like through another agency that can mediate the relation, or we apply for the participatory budget, like I told you, that this big garden that the residents proposed is part of the participatory budget. That is a program that exists already, so we can just apply for it. But things that are a bit out of the normal system, here in this place, I think it's more difficult because it's more disinvested.
Yeah, but sometimes if we have participatory process, we have, and there are a lot of a part of the community involved in the project. It could be a way to be easier, have the municipality interested on it.
Yeah, I hope that answers.
Yeah. And also the follow-up question was, how do you initially come forward with the design to them? What all do you bring with you to make them understand your design?
I think so. First of all, we don't come, like the first meetings are not about the design, right? The first meetings are trying to understand the needs, the ambitions, etc. People come up with ideas of what they would like to see, and then we come with design, and then we bring different solutions. First of all, not just one, but different options, models, plans, isometrics, and like renders, photo montage, so that you can see how the space can be used. Mainly those are the ones that, but we also did a model for this last one. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So there's one more question. How was participation from the community different when the funding was through an external agency like the government or the NGO, and when the community was funding it themselves? So what would be the difference in those two cases?
Do we have anything that the residents fund their project, like the street market? But that was not like a high aspect. Yeah, I think most of the things are being funded by external. Yeah, most of the things are being funded by external, not by the residents, but by municipality, boards, European funds.
Yeah, but that's a point, an important point, that our activities usually are not paid for the community. So it's not supposed that.
Yeah, these projects are projects that should be publicly funded because they are public works. So everything that has to do with public space and even with improving the quality of life of these people is in the end should be a public agenda. It should be something that the public should be, that the government should be accounted for. So in the end, like how we have been doing is that we apply for different funds of like existing programs that exist already by the municipality or by European money that has to have a co-funding from different stakeholders. But so for example, the next spaces that we are going, the public spaces that we are going to do, it's a program that 70% is funded by European by the European Union, by an European fund. And then the rest is invested by the ward or the municipality. And they do see an interest in that because they just pay 30% of it, but they do have like their stamp that they did it. So that's an important thing in terms of like political will, but it's anyways an improvement for the lives of the city. So yeah, we see advantage on that. I know that these systems are very, I don't know if there's such thing in India, but here there is already some of these programs that allow for this kind of projects implementation. And that's important, I think.
Yeah, I think in India it would be far more difficult to really try and even access the government funds if you are not going through some kind of contact. Also in India right now, public projects are not put out for someone to really apply to. Usually public projects in India, the tenders that they float, the criteria by default removes 95% of us because they're just meant for a certain group of people to be taking up the projects and to be building it. So it's, I think, a little bit more complicated.
Yeah. No, yeah, I agree. And I think that the problem here is that there are this kind of programs. We also have that problem that sometimes the programs are not available for everyone, but also there's not much information about it sometimes, and the applications are too complicated for someone that is not used to do it to be able to do it. So we have been working also on how to make those processes with the municipality for some months on how to make that process more accessible so that actually, for example, for this participatory budget, there's a lot of proposals, but then the proposals are not like they don't have much quality because the way to do the proposal is not easy. So then a resident community like this one didn't know how to do it. So we have been also trying to work on how these existing programs that we think are really important on how they can actually become more accessible and fulfill that objective that is to reach to everyone.
If anybody else has any last questions, otherwise we can wrap the session up. Okay, I guess not. Thank you so much, Mariana. Thank you so much.